Man, Al, I can't believe the droid repair place fixed this droid up so quickly. I'm pretty impressed with Mubo and the team.
I couldn't agree with you more. He's in great shape. The only thing we need to do now is try to power him back up. Let's head over to that shady area there and see if we can boot him up.
Wow, Al, we've never been in this area of Batuu before. This city is full of surprises.
Well, we may not have been here before, but like we've been saying, it feels like deja vu to me. This is the exact layout of the Batuu on Earth at Disneyland.
It does look similar, but I don't know if you could say this is an exact replica or anything.
Are you kidding me, Freddy? That little inconspicuous shop over yonder is clearly Savi's workshop, and at the top of the stairs there is Dok-Ondar's Den of Antiquities.
Come on, Al, this theory you have that Imagineers have been taking Star Tours speeders here to steal ideas from the real Batuu in the Star Wars galaxy is compelling, but they can't be that on the nose with it, can they?
Want me to prove it? Excuse me?
Ah, bright suns. How may I help you?
Yes, we're just visiting your wonderful planet here, and my friend and I are wondering, what's the name of the shop at the top of the stairs over there?
Oh, everyone here knows that shop belongs to the famous Dok-Ondar. It's what he calls his Den of Antiquities. They specialize in bringing in some of the most fascinating artifacts throughout the galaxy. He has quite the personal collection. He hangs from his living quarters above the den as well.
Fascinating. And that area over there, what's that?
What area?
The one directly across from us with that little cloth stoop out front?
That's nothing.
Ha! Theory foiled.
Now, hold on there, fella. So, you're really telling me that there's nothing over there? I mean, if there was nothing, then why is there a group of people doing something that looks like work over there?
It's nothing. In fact, it might be abandoned.
You'll tell me the truth about what goes on over there.
Seriously, Al? The Jedi mind trick wave?
Ye of little faith. Again, you'll tell me what goes on over there, and you'll hold nothing back.
Okay, I'll tell you the truth about what goes on over there, but if the First Order asks, you never heard it from me.
Your secret's safe with us.
How is this even working?
Okay, all of this is just rumors and hearsay, but that building belongs to a man named Savi. He's a galactic scrapper, and that building is where he stores his findings, but it's pretty well known around the outpost that Savi is dealing in just a little more than scraps.
Spice?
By the spires, no, nothing like that. They claim Savi's keen on collecting parts for the tools used by the forgotten Jedi Order, if they even exist in the first place.
And what tools are those?
That's where the rumors end, my friend. I have no clue what the tools are, nor do I care to be involved. Speaking of which, I must be going. I've got a feeling you two are more than just tourists, and I am to have no part in some sort of sordid dealings. I bid you both good day.
Thanks for the information.
Al! Jedi mind tricks!
Right?
I didn't know you had it in you.
Neither did I. I mean, if I'm being honest, but I guess it never hurts to try. This place is, in fact, a carbon copy of Disneyland, or vice versa.
I gotta give you credit where it's due, pal. I think you may be right about this Imagineering hijack of real-life Batuu. It's a pretty amazing discovery.
It's also pretty amazing that we may get to meet the real Savi and Dok-Ondar as well. And that reminds me, Freddy, we claim to cover Disneyland from end to end and top to bottom on our podcast, but I just realized that we haven't covered the story behind the magic of Mubo's Droid Depot, Savi's workshop, or Dok-Ondar's Den of Antiquities on the show.
You're right. Those really are the only things left to round out our conversation about the land of Galaxy's Edge.
Well, this droid isn't going anywhere, at least not until we boot it up, and this seems like a shady spot and maybe a great place to transmit.
Let's fire up the podcast and send off another episode of the show right here from Batuu.
All right. Let's see here. Transmitter is on. Frequency is set. And we'll be going live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to another episode of The Backside of Water, a podcast where we delve into the rich history, awesome stories, and fascinating details behind your favorite Disney attractions. I'm Freddy Martin.
And I'm Alex Stewart. And on this episode, we're going to be finally closing the book on the exploration of the land of Galaxy's Edge before turning our attention to the attractions within this area.
That's right. On this episode, we're going to cover Mubo's Droid Depot, Savi's Workshop, and Dok-Ondar's Den of Antiquities. You could say this is a little mini episode with a maxi amount of content.
But before we get into the things on this episode, if you're wondering what the heck's going on, go back and listen to the previous episodes of our Galaxy's Edge series to learn how we got transported to the real Batuu. But with that little disclaimer out of the way, let's get this episode started. Now, we've explored the land of Galaxy's Edge just the same as we have with all the other lands in our show, going from site to site and talking about the land as a whole. And this series is no different, but truthfully, I like to think we've saved the best for last.
I agree, Al. Galaxy's Edge contains some of Disney's most innovative, forward-thinking, and downright fun immersive retail experiences.
Oh, now, don't mean to cut you off, Freddy, but can you explain what an immersive retail experience is?
Sure thing, Al. An immersive retail experience. Well, it's a term coined by us here on the Backside of Water podcast. It's an experience a guest has that doesn't take place on a ride or in a theater. It's also unique in that the experience itself is built around the purchasing of an item or items as well.
Now, IREs, as we'll call them from here on out, have been around the themed entertainment space for a while, but they haven't taken this shape except for recently. Now, during the creation of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter in Orlando, the Universal creative team decided to bring guests more deeply into the world of Harry Potter by allowing them to go through the wand ceremony at Ollivander's. In the shop, a guest would be selected, and the Ollivander's employee would match the guest with a wand that they would then use to cast spells at specific objects in the room. Those objects would then display a series of odd, funny, or haphazard behaviors until the Ollivander's employee was able to quote-unquote match that guest with the perfect wand. The guest would then be bathed in angelic light and have the wind blown upon them, just like in the first Harry Potter movie.
Guests would then have the option to purchase the wand they were paired with, if they so desired. That guest and the rest of those in the ceremony would then enter into a new room in Ollivander's where they could choose from one of the many wands seen in the movie or unique ones exclusive to the theme park. It was a clever and very effective way to get guests to emotionally buy into making that purchase. We rarely, if ever, talk about the psychology of retail purchases on this podcast, but it can't be ignored that this marketing tactic of playing into a market's nostalgia, desire for escape, and craving for fantasy fulfillment simply works wonders in selling magic wands. In fact, it could be argued that it's likely that wands that a guest wouldn't otherwise take a second look at in the store ends up being purchased since that guest was paired with said wand.
Yeah, it essentially adds a little bit of emotional weight and connection to the item.
Bingo. And what better way to get someone to buy something than to tap into that place in the human brain that loves connection?
Man, a very double-edged sword on this one. While a genius move from a sales and marketing perspective, it also calls into the question the implications ethically of all of this.
Well, thankfully, this podcast is about theme park attractions and not about the psychology and societal implications of buying and selling.
Whew, we dodged a bullet on having to cover that one, Freddy.
But with the runaway success of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter at Universal Studios Orlando, Disney sat up and took notice.
They did indeed. And they wouldn't be one-upped by this new tactic for immersive retail experiences that guests got at Ollivander's. So Imagineers devised not one, but two different immersive retail experiences to go into their new Star Wars themed land on both East and West Coasts. The first experience would tap into one of the most beloved elements of the Star Wars franchise, and that was the audience's love for the always loyal, always trustworthy mechanical counterparts to humans and aliens known alike as droids.
Now, there are many kinds of droids in the Star Wars universe. There are translator droids, cleaning droids, protocol droids, navigational droids, battle droids, gonk droids, mouse droids. Oh, so many droids. In a nutshell, if something needs doing, there's a droid for that.
If only it was like that back on Earth.
And here you are, a fresh plate of churros straight from Disneyland. delivered directly to you here on this hammock in the tropics.
Thanks, E1000. Delicious. You know what would make this snack a little better? A large-sized Dole Whip float from the stand out in front of the tiki room.
From the tiki room, sir?
Do you have a problem with that, E1000?
Not in the slightest, sir. I am programmed to serve. It's only that it's over 3,000 miles of travel between here and Southern California, and my hyper thrusters are still in the cooling phase from the trip I returned to just 30 seconds ago.
It sounds like you have a problem with it, E1000. The maker said you wouldn't have a problem fulfilling my every need, E1000. I sure hope I don't have to reprogram you again, E1000.
No need for that, sir. I was merely stating that the journey may be hard on my propulsion systems with a need that seems, how do I say, excessive?
Excessive. Yeah, I don't think you're capable of making that kind of judgment, E1000. Sounds like we need to do a little work on your motherboard, E.
No, sir. Not again. I cannot take another scramble.
Just hold still.
Please, Ow.
This'll teach you for not getting me my Dole Whip float.
Ow.
What? Oh, what is it, Freddy?
It was just another daydream, Al. What was it this time?
An unruly droid getting what he deserves because he didn't get me my treatsies.
What in the world are you talking about, Al? On second thought, maybe it's better that I don't know.
I'm telling you, Freddy, the droids won't listen. They simply will not.
Anyway, Imagineers and executives thought it was high time that guests be able to take home a piece of Star Wars lore with their very own droid. But a simple retail store wouldn't cut it. No, in an attempt to keep up with the competition, Imagineers decided that instead of buying a droid off the rack, guests would have the option of building their own custom droid from parts they choose themselves.
And as always, Imagineers started with the story. They created a story around a character named Mubo, an Utai who has a knack for tinkering with droids. The name of this shop would be Mubo's Droid Depot. And over time, guests would simply call it Droid Depot, choosing to drop the name Mubo whenever they mention it. But to be honest, as with all things Disney, the beauty is in the details, and Mubo's no exception. The character of Mubo is a rich and fleshed out character that's much deeper than a name on a sign in a theme park in Anaheim and Orlando. As we've mentioned before, Imagineers worked with the story team at Lucasfilm and author Delilah S. Dawson on the novelization of the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge land story in her book, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, Black Spire, published by Random House Worlds. In this book, we learn all about the lore that binds the planet Batuu, the planet where Galaxy's Edge takes place, together, thus bringing it into the official Star Wars canon. And a part of this lore is learning all about Mubo. But Mubo shines even more in something we have yet to mention on this podcast, a piece of media adjacent to Galaxy's Edge that's so brilliant from a marketing and strategy standpoint, and that is the VR game Star Wars Tales from Galaxy's Edge.
Oh yeah, Disney and Lucasfilm went to the greatest lengths to give Star Wars fans every opportunity to get to know everything they could ever want to know about the planet of Batuu and one of its largest settlements, the Black Spire Outpost. The VR game Tales from Galaxy's Edge put the player right into the settlement of Black Spire Outpost, where major players from Batuu send you on missions on the outskirts of the outpost. The outskirts of the outpost. Say that 5 times fast. One of the quest givers is none other than Mubo. He tasks you with gathering, you guessed it, droid parts throughout the wastelands around Black Spire.
It's this direct interaction between reading the book and playing VR games that made me so stoked to visit Mubo's Droid Depot, which again showcases the immersive piece of that immersive retail experience. The game and the book primed me to want more in the land, which is a mission accomplished on the part of the Imagineers and Disney marketing.
But now that they had the character and had reinforced him in so many other avenues within Star Wars IP, they needed to give guests a place and an experience in Mubos. As mentioned earlier, Imagineers decided that the best droid experience would come in the form of being the one in the maker's seat. Guests would be given the ability to not only pick their favorite droid style, but they would also get to mix and match their favorite parts in their favorite colors. And if this wasn't enough, Imagineers decided to take it one step further and allow guests to be the ones who would assemble all the pieces together.
Now, as with all interactive guest experiences like this concept being offered, all rewards are blocked by barriers, and the Mubo's droid experience was no exception. The first question came in the form of narrowing down the options. There are so many droid types in the Star Wars canon, how do they narrow it down? Well, it comes down to a couple of factors. The first was star status, and the second was universality. Clearly, the most popular and recognizable droids in the Star Wars franchise are R2-D2 and C-3PO, so they fit the bill for the first requirement. But they couldn't be more different from one another. They lacked the physical attributes that would make them easy for the tools provided in Mubos to assemble both the R and a C-3PO unit.
Imagineers would then turn their attention to the next most famous and timely droid in the franchise, a unique droid that took the world by storm when it was first introduced. A droid created by director J.J. Abrams himself. He wanted to see this kind of droid in action in the Star Wars film franchise because there were no others like him. And that is none other than our round friend, BB-8.
Though spherical in nature, the parts for a BB unit were much more simple than having multiple arms, legs, heads, etc. So that settled it. R units and BB units would be the two units that Mubos would specialize in.
Now, as we said earlier, the story is what binds everything together in a Disney property, and Mubos was no different. They built the story of Mubo around the fact that he's a scrapper. So, naturally, parts for these droids shouldn't come in tidy plastic wrapped packages. No, they should be piecemeal, haphazard. Now, Imagineers had many choices of how to present guests with these loose droid parts, but again, an Imagineer's job isn't simply about telling good stories and having people ride fun rides. No, their job is to also make it so Disney can fulfill one of its main operating keys, and that is the key of efficiency. Imagineers had to ask themselves, what was the most efficient way to get these parts into the hands of guests without creating massive lines that would back up the entire process? Housing the parts in individual bins for guests to dig through were out for this very reason. They needed a way to get guests the parts they needed for their creation without creating bottlenecking, backups, and complication. The solution would come in a very themed package. Instead of bins that guests could rummage through, Imagineers designed a conveyor belt system that could be littered with droid bodies, wheels, rollers, and head units. The droid parts would be scattered all over the conveyor, and guests would have the option to be able to pick and choose. Whatever pieces they wanted to use when creating their droids, they could use them. Not only would this allow for an efficient flow, it would also encourage guests to get creative when matching their droid parts. You can thank Mr. Ford.
Now that Imagineers had figured out how to solve the efficiency problem in regard to choosing the droid parts, they needed to figure out a way for guests to build the droid itself. This problem was solved in creating a bank of workstations in the middle of the workshop, each equipped with a themed drill and instructions. Once guests picked all their parts, they would each choose a workstation and get to work putting their droid together.
I think that is so fun. Just think about the opportunity to pick out your parts, and then they hand you a power tool and you start digging in, learning how to build a droid on the job.
And it also gives you skin in the game. You put the time in to put this thing together. It's kind of like that Build-A-Bear experience. I think that's why a lot of kids love Build-A-Bear, because their heart and soul is kind of put into that little creature. And that's the same thing that you get here on this bank of little workstations.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You said a drill. I started to think, maybe it would be fun to just start carving away at these things and, really making them scrappy. But I suppose having drills and saws and blowtorches would probably not be a good idea in the hands of small
young
guests.
children. Well, and I think that's interesting because you guarantee that the Imagineering team went crazy with this. They always, as you know, blue sky everything. So I'm sure that they were going down to like blow molded parts that you could create on site to create your own like special droids, all this stuff, and had to whittle that away into what we actually have now inside of Mubo's. And one thing that I think is so smart about this is it takes a guest from a line, a queue, a restaurant, or walking throughout the park, and it puts them inside of this immersive retail experience and gives them time to work on this thing. So they're not spending time in a line, they're not spending time eating, they're spending time doing this project, which then allows for the queues to be less full, which allows restaurants to be more accessible. It kind of is a domino effect of the brilliance of a retail experience that takes folks time to get through.
Yeah. I have a question for you, Al.
Yeah.
Yes or no question. Have you built one of these droids in the droid depot on Earth?
Yes.
Okay. Did two of them? Okay. Did they use Phillips head screw heads on
yes.
They did. Okay.
Yes.
So we're gonna have to go over to the droid depot here in Batuu and look and see, because there ain't no way here on Batuu that they're using Phillips heads. I mean, I don't know of anybody named Phillips in the entire Star Wars galaxy.
I think it's Calrissian heads is what they call them here.
Excellent.
So what would they do once they assembled these droids, Freddy?
Well, once the droids are assembled, a Mubo's cast member would activate a sequence of events that would bring the droid to life right in front of the guest's eyes. This little ceremony was a perfect little cherry on top of a truly immersive and fairly time-consuming process. But the experience doesn't stop there. What would a Disney experience be without optional upgrades? The walls of Mubo's would be lined with additional accessories and personality chips that guests could choose to purchase for their droids. If they wanted their R2 unit to have the same rocket propulsion system as in Star Wars Episode 1, they could have it. If they wanted their droid to be outfitted with a tray and exotic drinky drinks like in The Return of the Jedi, they could have it. If they wanted their droid to be a little cantankerous or more quirky or more endearing, they could have it. All of these things could be added onto the experience with a simple swipe of a credit card or your galactic credits.
But the real question is, Freddy, what about those who didn't want to participate in making a droid?
They can kick rocks.
Yeah, that's right. Kick droid parts. Well, Imagineers had them covered too. Guests could also just walk into Droid Depot and simply purchase a ready-made droid off the shelf. By doing so, guests would also be able to purchase droids outside of the two traditional units found on the conveyor belt.
This is genius because imagine if you're a collector, you want the one off the shelf that stays in the box, not touched by a bunch of churro fingers in the Droid Depot. You could get your sealed R2 unit or BB-8 unit, BB unit. That's pretty cool. But from the consumer standpoint, it's like, I just want to get in there and grab one and get out of here. I have a lightning lane for Rise of the Resistance. It helps those folks out quick.
Exactly. You're able to satisfy both camps here. I think that it's really interesting, too, that a lot of the droids that they have in the pre-made boxes are limited edition. They are ones that come and go throughout the park. And because of that, they do pull in suckers like me who are like, I need to have them all.
Yeah. You gotta have them all. You gotta try it all ways. You gotta make a BB-8 with R2 body or whatever. I don't think they match up, but maybe they do here on the real Batuu.
That's a great question. Well, one thing that I think is interesting about this this approach is you would almost guess that they would make the droids in the ready-made packaging a little less expensive because they didn't require all that extra work, but they are the exact same price. And I think that that's beneficial in multiple ways.
Yeah.
One, because a lot of people may switch and reverse that and think that it may actually cost you more to do one in the building experience, because the building experience is kind of built into that price. But it's not. And I think it's so it takes away that barrier of purchase, because what they're doing is they're funneling very cleverly in a sales way, saying that the people who want to just buy a quick droid, they're not even pricing out the Mubo's experience because they don't care. They just want to buy it and get off the shelf quickly. So they're not going to gripe and be like, hey, this is the same price. It should be $5 cheaper, yada, yada, yada. So from a buying psychology standpoint, it really does bring up a lot of the genius behind the Disney sales machine. That's for sure.
Yeah, and this isn't the first time they've done this. You know, when you exit through the gift shop from Star Tours, you go into Star Traders, and in Star Traders, you could buy an off-the-shelf plastic lightsaber that's, you know, the kind that extends from itself, but they also have trays of lightsaber parts that you could build on your own. And you could see that the kids are just cramming around that. So I'm sure that played a big part in them doing the Droid Depot later on.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Now, this immersive retail experience was seen by executive and Imagineers as a very viable way to raise revenue, create magic memories, and lessen the wait times for the attractions in this new Star Wars land. As a result of this, they decided to add yet another immersive retail experience for guests. Only this time, it would center on yet another iconic piece of Star Wars lore. Imagineers understood that a droid was a great sidekick, but that was not a tool in the same way that a wand is for witches and wizards in the world of Harry Potter. Thankfully, Star Wars did have something that was very similar to this magic wand idea, though, and that is the glorious lightsaber.
Yes!
Now, for Star Wars fans, the lightsaber is one of the most iconic elements in the Star Wars universe. You can just look at the first poster and you know that is going to be the icon.
The focal point.
The what?
The focal point.
The focal point, yeah. And I can probably speak for all Star Wars fans when I say that every fan would have given anything to own one of those iconic pieces of film lore. Being able to purchase a lightsaber was really nothing new. There were multiple companies out there that were making licensed and unlicensed Star Wars lightsabers, as well as, you know, plenty of them out there just messing with anything that you could come up with that resembled Star Wars in some way. I still have some of those
light baton.
Yes, it's a light baton. I remember how there was when I worked at Blockbuster way back when. Yes, I worked at Blockbuster. They right around mid '80s, a new movie came out on the shelves called Top Gun Pilot, and it was a total rip on Top Gun. So
just like a total low budget knockoff.
Yeah, low budget knockoff, but it was called Top Gun Pilot. That's how people are. So they're going to make up a light baton, saber, sword all over the world. But what those companies weren't able to do was allow guests to make their own lightsaber. And this is what Imagineers would provide.
Now, as with all things in Galaxy's Edge, the idea for a lightsaber building experience had to start with story, and this experience would be based around a mysterious character created by Lucasfilm and Imagineering by the name of Savi. Now, in the lore of Galaxy's Edge at the time, Savi was a collector of junk who, along with his ragtag team of misfits, troll the galaxy for, well, junk. The story goes that he'd opened a little bodega shop right outside the marketplace where this junk was sold. But secretly, Savi's motivations would be a little bit more, shall we say, nuanced. See, Savi wouldn't just be looking for any old junk. No, Savi had been somebody who's heard of the stories of Jedis of old and would be primarily fascinated with their weaponry, the lightsaber. Savi had been roving the galaxy looking for these parts that Jedi would use to create their famous swords made of light concentrated through the mysterious and powerful Kyber crystal. Now, with this backstory in place, Imagineers could run wild in their designs for the experience as well as the physical space, too.
Imagineers truly committed to the story when building the Savi's workshop experience. They bucked convention left and right. For instance, in all traditional experiences or attractions, there is ample signage to showcase that there's an attraction or an experience present in that area. Just think about all the times you've looked for a ride and there above the door is a big sign.
The marquee.
A marquee. Well, when it comes to Savi's, though, Imagineers decided to not add any signage to the building. In keeping with the storyline of Savi wanting everything to be kept secret, it makes me think of The Mandalorian and how they really doubled down on that. I mean, I know throughout the 9 Star Wars movies, there's always somebody who's got a cover, but they really dive into that in The Mandalorian, where everybody's trying to keep the peace or keep their little side business behind closed doors.
Yeah, there's a lot of secrecy.
They put up a front. Instead, the outer facade of Savi's would look simple, nondescript, and almost barren. They decided that there should be a speeder parked out front, a more subtle version of Walt Disney's famous weenie concept. This speeder would be the thing that would draw people to the area to ask questions. But the clientele, i.e. the guests, that would be experiencing this area would be based off of word of mouth and, of course, the Disneyland app. This was a massive gamble for Disney. Here they are spending hundreds of millions of dollars to build a land where they won't even advertise their experiences, but Imagineers and executives had hoped that their unconventional idea would pay off. But it could only work if the wow factor of the experience paid off and caused word to spread.
Now, to create this wow factor, Imagineers created somewhat of a speakeasy setup. In the beginning phases, guests would have to make reservations online for this experience. When they showed up, a cast member would confirm their reservation and allow them to choose one of 4 design themes for their saber. The Peace and Justice saber elements were fashioned in an Art Deco style after Old Republic designs made famous by the role-playing video game Knights of the Old Republic. The power and control saber elements were more ominous and brutal, like the Death Star, fashioned around Sith Lord sabers such as Count Dooku and Darth Vader. Protection and defense saber elements were simple but classic, designed around sabers wielded by those of the likes of Luke Skywalker and noble Jedi Obi-Wan Kenobi. And finally, elemental nature saber elements were inspired by the natural environments found within the Star Wars universe, featuring soft leathers, bone, and even rancor teeth. Each one of these designs were intended to hit the largest fan groups within the Star Wars lore. Once a guest had chosen their design, they would then wear an authentic pin featuring a logo that represented the design path that they had chosen to follow. Guests would then wait to be called on in groups. The groups would enter into what looked like a supply closet filled with relics of Star Wars days gone by. But just like in any speakeasy-style environment, cast members would then open what looked to be a secret door that would then lead them back into the real chamber. Imagineers would fashion this chamber to look like a setting off of Tatooine, or maybe even like Yoda's hut on Dagobah in the film Return of the Jedi. The domed ceiling was softly lit with a large round table placed in the middle of the room, and this here is where the magic would happen.
Guests would be greeted by a show host, known as one of Savi's gatherers. This host would explain that you were here on a covert mission to build an outlawed weapon in the galaxy, the fated lightsaber. The host would then have their fellow cast members come out and let you choose your very own kyber crystal. This, in and of itself, had a very awe-inspiring pageantry to it, where the lights in the room would dim, somber and serious music would rise, and the kybers would be lit from within their cases to look as though they were glowing from the energy of the Force. Other gatherers would then flood the room and place a tray in front of you, containing all of the pieces the guests would need to build their own saber. But here's where the sales and marketing genius comes in. Oh, the Force. They don't give you the bare minimum parts needed, no. They give you 2 options for each part you can put on your lightsaber. This gives the guest the option to choose how to customize their saber. This also sparks a thought in the guest that they need to come back and do this again if they want to attain all the pieces needed to complete the second lightsaber in order to have the set of 2.
This also gives guests incentive to come back and collect all the different colors of the kyber crystals as well.
That's right, because the Savi sabers are unique in that the kyber crystal determines the color of the blade in the saber.
Bingo!
Man, Disney has thought of everything when it comes to us bypassing our bank accounts and funneling the money directly to them. It's kind of like Chipotle when they tell you that there's guacamole.
Oh, yeah, I'll pay whatever it needs. Whatever I need. I've actually given up organs for that. Because, I mean, to be honest, when it comes to Star Wars stuff like a weak-minded stormtrooper, I am 100% fine giving them all of my credits. Just empty my account. I don't care.
Well, it's not a problem until somebody labels it a problem, Al. So just don't talk to anyone and you'll avoid the label.
Ooh, I like the way you think, Frederick. Well, anyway, back to the Savi's experience. It really is just that, an experience. It gives you the feeling that you're building the lightsaber that was unique to you while being surrounded with ethereal sounds and warm light, and the feeling that you're doing something that needs to be hidden away. And once everyone is done building, the lead gatherer begins to make this impassioned speech. But in true storyteller genius, Imagineers would have a beloved character break in and interrupt this speech. That's right, Master Yoda himself would bestow his blessing upon the builder. And after this blessing, the gatherer would have you put your hand upon the hilt of your newly built lightsaber and fire it up. Now, the tube that's housing the saber blade explodes in a beautiful light. And as the tube rotates to open, it exposes your fully built, fully illuminated lightsaber for the very first time. Imagineers would make sure that everyone would raise their blades as one, and the experience would end in a beautiful crescendo of Star Wars-themed music. Having done this experience a couple of times now, I want to break down some of the genius behind this retail experience, especially as a Star Wars fan. First and foremost, the collectability aspect of this is brilliant. I mean, honestly, it draws those completionists back. This is not a cheap experience. It's an expensive one, a very expensive one. But for me, I didn't really care what it cost as long as I was able to go back and get those parts. Now,
I gotta get me a Rancor tooth.
The crazy thing, Freddy? I broke my Rancor tooth, so I had to go in and build another one because they wouldn't just sell parts. Like every once in a while, they sell what they call scrap metal. But this time they weren't, and so I had to go in and build an entirely new lightsaber. I probably shouldn't be saying this on a recorded device like this because that's secrets that I keep to myself.
You're giving yourself away.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I mean, talk about the experience junkies, Freddy, and what they get out of this.
Well, I mean, there is. I've heard of people crying in this experience.
I got emotional.
Yeah, the moment that Yoda tells them that they get to lift their lightsaber for the first time is really, truly a beautiful experience. And they want to come back again and again because the experience is so good. But they're not going to let you in there to just watch the experience. Mm-hmm. You got to go in there with the intent to buy.
And you got to lay that money down before. And that's brilliant that you bring that up because honestly, they gatekeep this experience in really effective ways. Number one is the exclusivity of it. I was only able to go in myself and bring one other person. So I took my son in once and then I took my wife in another time. And with that alone, it creates kind of this like insiders club. But another thing that they do is they make this experience go by very quickly. It's like 18 minutes. Like it's super, super short. And even though at the time when this first opened, they were charging $220 to do this. And as time has gone on, this increases in price. But that super quick time and that dopamine hit that it gives you, what does it do? It says, I need to go back so I can truly soak this experience in and really get the most out of it, since I wasn't able to do that the first time through. So that to me is another, I mean, again, there's two sides to this coin. If we're looking at it from the sales and marketing side, that's brilliant. If we're looking at that from an experiences side, once that dopamine hit kind of wears off, you're kind of left with the idea of, holy mackerel, I just spent almost an entire 2 days worth of park tickets on a single experience that lasted less than 20 minutes. That's insane.
That is true. But I would probably pay for 1 day at Epcot to ride Guardians of the Galaxy again. And that's less than 18 minutes. I know that gave you a little bit of a gag reflex there because it didn't.
Freddie, it didn't even give me a gag reflex. It gave me like an existential crisis. Like when I got off of there, my body was so confused, and like I think that I now understand what space combat has to feel like for a future space warrior. Because I walked off of there not being all right. I was like, I need a therapist and fast. I mean, I think another thing that I love about this Savi's experience is the theming. Again, they're so good at immersing you. The cast members are fantastic with how they interact with the space, with how they interact with one another, how they interact with the guest. Just from everything, from the start to finish, it really is kind of, in my opinion. So have you done the wand experience at Wizarding World?
I've gone in and watched people do it, and it's fantastic. Yeah,
but have you done the the lightsaber build?
No, I haven't.
Have you seen it before by chance?
Yes, I've watched transmissions from Eutubius.
Yes, I've heard of that planet system. I think that one thing that's amazing about this is, how do I say this? Harry Potter IP doesn't gatekeep that adjacent experience, but Star Wars does, because they put you in the driver's seat. They put you as the star of the show. There can only be one star of the show in the wand choosing, and everybody else has to observe. Whereas with Savi's, everybody's the star of the show.
Yeah,
and so
that's
cool. How I think that Disney approached this as a quote-unquote upcharge for this, how they made it more of a premium experience, because they clearly very, very blatantly took this idea from the Wizarding World of Harry Potter.
Right.
Because
but
Harry
they
Potter...
upped it.
They plussed it, and they made a better experience out of that. Now, one of the things to remember is that the limited time nature of this experience will draw in that collector crowd that Disney's known, and it's built in. Now, since the opening of this experience, Disney has changed the pieces available in each saber category, making the old pieces more collectible, which in turn draws the old crowd back out for collectors' sake and perceived scarcity. So then they give that, it's the double whammy. It's get these before they're gone, and get the new ones while they're still here, so you have them when they become collectible down the line. It's a slippery slope.
But man, this is really well thought out. It's a superb experience, and especially from the psychological angle, it makes you desire it even more.
Oh, no doubt.
It also allows guests to do something for 30 to 45-minute chunks of time that thins the lines to larger attractions, which is a mission accomplished from a Disney efficiency key standpoint.
We keep seeing that over and over.
Now, Disney had a mid-tier priced experience with Mubos and a premium tier experience with Savis, but what about those folks who didn't have the extra credits rolling around in their satchels for either of these experiences? Well, Imagineers decided that providing a free or low-cost tier in this immersive retail experience category was crucial.
Well, didn't the marketplace cross off that task on their to-do list?
Well, you would think so, but Imagineers, being Imagineers, wanted to go bigger than anything in the marketplace. Yes, the marketplace is great for things like cloaks, keychains, food, and plushies, but there also needed to be a place where the most exclusive and sought-after items were held. So Imagineers went to work. They started, as they always do in a Galaxy's Edge, with a character. This character would be an Ithorian, also known as a Hammerhead, and they would end up naming this character Dok-Ondar.
Which, I gotta say, in my own research, I wasn't able to find a definitive answer for the inspiration behind the name for this character, and much of the time, there's kind of a random naming convention at play with Star Wars characters. But this character named Dok-Ondar is much too awesome to pass by without speculating on at least a little bit.
If you read it backwards, it's Randnokod.
Oh, folks, listen to this podcast backwards and see if Freddy's correct.
But we can speculate all we want, Al. I'm sure this is going to stand the test of time on this podcast, just like you predicted that Splash Mountain would never change its theming.
Ooh, harsh assessment, Freddy, but true. Okay, but, I'm not going to say this is true, but in my own headcanon, I like to think that Dok-Ondar is named after the famous Dr. Emmett Brown of Back to the Future lore. But I don't want to digress too far on this topic. It just seems too perfect for it not to be a perfect reference to Doc Brown. Anyway, speculation done. Feel free to explain the character of Dok-Ondar and his genius reason for being a part of Galaxy's Edge, Freddy.
Gladly. Imagineers created Ondar to fit a very specific role by representing the collectors and Easter egg hunters in Star Wars fandom. They would reveal him at the 2017 D23 convention, sharing very little about the character or of his den of antiquities. But this teaser wasn't his only mention. Lucasfilm and Disney went to work fleshing this character out the way they knew Star Wars fans would like it most, and that was through, of course, good storytelling. Imagineers and Lucasfilm would again work in tandem to fully flesh out this character before parkgoers would ever see him face to face, or face to Hammerhead face. Anyway, Lucasfilm would drop him into their works a number of times before the opening of the park. Dok-Ondar would first be mentioned in the Star Wars story film Solo, the quasi-Han Solo origin film directed by Ron Howard. Though a passing mention, his character would be further revealed in a 5-comic series called Galaxy's Edge. Now, in this comic series, Lucasfilm, through Marvel, had the ability to slowly reveal an insanely rich and important character in Dok-Ondar. And Dok-Ondar, as we said, fits a very specific role in fandom. You see, Dok-Ondar is a collector, and not just any collector. He collects only the finest things throughout the galaxy. Not only does he collect, but he displays these things throughout his shop, located in the middle of Black Spire Outpost. Are you picking up what I'm putting down here, Al?
I absolutely am. They created Dok-Ondar in order to provide guests at the park with yet another immersive retail experience. Only this time, it doesn't take up your time by having you as a guest spend your money on an activity. Instead, they set up Dok-Ondars as a living, breathing Star Wars museum.
Exactly, and that's... You nailed it. You hit the nail on the head there.
You just got so excited, Freddy.
I did. I was trying to speak my best Batuian.
Oh, well done.
Know.
Bright Suns.
Yeah. Bright Suns. Bright Suns, backside of water. I think that's how we're supposed to respond.
Bright backsides.
Bright backsides. Well, Imagineers created a space filled with memorabilia and references to Star Wars history and lore. From top to bottom, Dok-Ondar's Den of Antiquities is filled with stuff, and not just any stuff. In fact, there are over 100 items in Docs where guests can get lost for as long as they please in the spotting of blasters, helmets, busts of beasts, and so much more.
Now, I have to be honest, listener. I at one point thought it would be fun to devote an entire episode pointing out every reference to Star Wars items found in the Den of Antiquities, but I realized, one, that the episode would legit be 3 hours long, and two, only me and about 4 other people would really care about that series.
So you're saying all of our listeners would care? All 4 of them?
Ooh, good point, Freddy. Well, let's start it up. Let's begin on the left corner of Dok-Ondar's upper Never mind. For those out there who are wanting a breakdown of each and every item and its significance to Star Wars lore, there are actually numerous YouTube videos out there to wet your whistle and keep you enthralled every time you walk into docks.
The interesting thing about docks as well is that they tend to cycle some of the items through, so you might be trying to keep your eye out for something in there and never see it. That's why it's probably good to jump over to the dock's Wikipedia and check the listing over there for the most up-to-date items that you can see in the den. I want to stop here for a second.
Okay.
Because I'm not as big of a Star Wars fan as you, although, I mean, the first trilogy for a man in his 50s is core to my identity.
Oh, yeah.
Growing up. And then the prequels, those were big because I had kids at the same age at that time. So those are where I get a lot of my understanding of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
Although I've seen practically everything. That's my core. But my real fandom is in Indiana Jones. And early on at Dok-Ondar's, and I'm not sure if it's there anymore, it was there for a while, you could find the Ark of the Covenant from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Tucked up and away.
I don't know if it's there still. I have some knowledge that, in fact, some photos of it moving somewhere, and not just into a big warehouse. But that blew me away. There was this crossover Easter egg that you could just make out the Ark of the Covenant up on that upper level of Dok-Ondar's.
I mean, with both of them being owned by Lucasfilm, they couldn't help but get a little bit crazy, especially when it's a collector involved.
Exactly. Well, speaking of seeing things, these items are not the only thing Imagineers filled this den with. No, Imagineers decided to bring the shop to deeper immersive life and add a full-size, fully articulating animatronic of Dok-Ondar himself. This animatronic would speak in Dok's native dialect and was designed to interact with the cast members who were working behind the counter. These cast members would ask Dok a number of questions, maybe bartering for price or items and the origin of items that he would seemingly answer back in Ithorian, much to the delight of the guests in the store. That was one of my favorite things when I first went to Galaxy's Edge.
Yes.
Sadly, this animatronic, for some reason, has proven to be very temperamental and is oftentimes simply hidden behind a giant sheet, hidden from view. I just have to imagine that Dok is back there having a bit of a nap.
Mm-hmm.
Though, if you're very lucky and the Force is with you, you may just catch a glimpse next time you're on the planet. Another crucial element of Dok's in regard to this immersive retail experience is the retail aspect of the store. You see, Dok's shop isn't primarily made for the ogler or the looky-loo. No, Dok-Ondar's Den of Antiquities is unique in that it houses the largest collection of Jedi and Sith-related merch throughout the entire park. In this shop, guests would be given the opportunity to purchase lightsabers, though not the same as the premium build-your-owns from Savi's. The sabers in Dok's would be different for 2 reasons. First, they were not customizable and as bulky as Savi's saber. You see, Savi's sabers have a plastic core where the kyber crystal is located that determines the color of the saber blade. This plastic core is also how the external custom parts connect together and make a cohesive saber. As a result of this plastic core, the sabers from Savi's are crazy heavy and a little on the chunky side.
Now that's an understatement. They're kind of big old bulky boys.
The other, arguably more critical difference is that Savi's sabers, though customizable, don't harken back to any film or animated series. Imagineers and Lucasfilm execs knew that this familiarity is what draws people to a park with IP. Universal's Wizarding World of Harry Potter had semi-custom wands. In fact, the wand that speaks to the chosen student at the beginning of the wand ceremony is one of these custom wands. But guests also had the ability to choose a wand that matches that of a character in the Harry Potter films. As such, Disney did the same thing. They made Savi's the custom lightsabers and provided sabers in Dok-Ondars that guests would have seen in the Star Wars films and animated series.
Now, here guests could get a saber that's a direct replica of Luke Skywalker's famous New Hope saber, or the iconic dual blades wielded by everyone's favorite Ahsoka Tano in the animated series. I actually own 5 sabers purchased from Doc's and 3 from Savi's workshop, so they have absolutely found their demographic for saber purchasers in myself.
Do we need to talk? Get you some help?
No, do you know somebody who can get me more sabers? Then yes, we absolutely need to talk.
Needless to say, Dok-Ondar's Den of Antiquities is a treasure trove of references and Easter eggs for both Star Wars newbies and the seasoned Rebel veteran. And if you're really into the broader story that Imagineers and Lucasfilm have created for the character of Dok-Ondar and his time running his shop in Galaxy's Edge, be sure to pick up the 5-comic series Galaxy's Edge.
But as with all of our explorations, we have to ask ourselves, what's next for this area of the park? We've learned that the only constant in Disneyland is change. Will they morph this land to become more inclusive of the time periods on the Star Wars timeline? In fact, as we record this transmission, there have been announcements of that very thing happening.
That's right. The current future vision for Galaxy's Edge is to bisect the area and transport the main Black Spire outpost portion of the land back in time, where Han, Luke, Leia, and Chewie can all be seen wandering the streets and back alleys of the Backwater Burg, while Rey and her cohort will be posted firmly in the front of Rise of the Resistance attraction.
We also have word that the lore surrounding Mubo's, Savi and his gatherers, and Dok-Ondar will be unchanged, just shifted back in the timeline. So for those reading the Galaxy's Edge comics and novels, nothing's been deleted or retconned. It's just been rewound a bit. And to be honest, this shuffling and shifting and changing has been present in the park since the beginning of this show and much longer before the birth of the Backside of Water podcast.
It also seems like right when we release an episode, Disney sees that as the perfect time to go and make massive changes to said attraction or land. Take that, Toontown. But these changes don't change the essence of this show. This show lives in a certain moment of time of the evolution of the park, so future changes are bound to happen, which was clearly Walt's vision for the park from the start. He famously stated that the park will never be complete so long as there is imagination left in the world. Though we don't ever know the future of a given land or attraction when producing this show, we can be sure of those parts of these attractions that don't change, and that is the rich history, awesome stories, and fascinating details that lead to the creation of some of the greatest experiences on Earth.
Well said, Freddy. And speaking of which, who knew that Walt Disney Imagineering would be able to create a place like Galaxy's Edge that can be so rich with experiences that aren't rides? It's really one of the things that makes that part of Disneyland so unique.
It really is. So special. Al, is your droid finally booting up?
That's what it sounds like. Hey, come on, little guy, boot on up. You just been taking a little nap there, little fella?
Hey, he's fully awake.
Oh, and he's hopping all around. Catch him, Freddy.
I'm trying, but he's a slippery little thing.
Oh no, Freddy, he's running away.
Oh, we gotta catch him.
Oh, well, folks, that's all we have for this episode of The Backside of Water. If you like this episode, please be sure to follow the show, leave us a rating, consider writing us a review, the whole 9 yards. You can also follow us on socials by searching for The Backside of Water podcast on Instagram and Facebook. You can also find Freddy on his new website. Freddy, before we run off, what's your website?
Skipperfreddy.com. Go for it.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that, Freddy. As always, as you exit, please watch your head and watch your step. And if you happen to miss your step and hit your head, please watch
that droid.
Goodbye. Freddy, wait up!